Hello, this is David, and we're going to be doing the monthly garden checklist for September. This month, our pumpkins have arrived, and the Halloween boutique is open, the Midnight Market. Come check it out. So September is sort of a transition month. So right now, this is all the vegetables I'm going to be planting. So as we get cooler, we'll start planting more of the fall, winter vegetables. But right now, I'm still pushing some of the summer stuff. So right now, I'm looking at doing some of the fall tomatoes. One of my favorite fall tomatoes is, I love Oregon Spring. Oregon Spring is a good one. The one thing that make the fall tomatoes different is they're faster varieties. So you're not going to see a lot of heirlooms this time of year because they're later varieties. So right now you're seeing a lot of the bush or the determinate varieties. Oregon Spring, again, probably 3 to 4 feet. Medium-sized tomatoes, good slicers. So a lot of these fall varieties are different than your normal heirlooms and regular season tomatoes. You got Stupici. This is actually a Czechoslovakian heirloom, so this is a good one. Little tomatoes, probably this a little bit bigger than a cherry, is an heirloom. You can save seeds on it. So these two my favorites. I brought up another good one that's called Glacier. So like the fall tomatoes, so we're going into those. See, I'm still doing a lot of summer stuff, you know. I'm still planting Japanese cucumbers. I'm still planting the Persian cucumbers. And so I'm gonna probably do some butternut squash because we won't really start cooling down until later into October. But this month, September sometimes can be hotter than July. So I still do the summer stuff and I push it to the end. And then as we cool off end of the month or next month, that's when I'll start doing some of them. Now we are getting some of the fall vegetables. So like with the Brussels sprouts, you can do Brussels sprouts right now if you're not that hot where you're at. Like on the coast, they can get away with it. But if you're farther inland, I still will push some of the summer stuff. So that's one thing. But as we get into the end of the month and we start cooling off more, then you can do them. But you got to watch to see what the weather does because September is a really different transition month. Yeah, and so that's like, and fertilizing them too, that's really important. So go through with your down-to-earth fertilizers, feed them good, water them in good, get them off to a fast start. And so these are some of the vegetable seeds that I'll be planting for September. So the first ones I'm going to go through are some of the root crops. And so a lot of times with your carrots and your beets and your radishes, so I'm going to direct sow them in the ground. Make sure they get 6 to 8 hours of sun. If they don't get enough sun, they won't grow and they won't really, you know, mature out. So it's really important for root crops, full sun, even though you'll have to water them consistently, and it takes about 2 weeks for some of them to germinate, so a little slow to germinate. So first is the Scarlet Natides carrot. I like these carrots. Good variety, good all-around variety. They take about 80 days. So I'm doing the Scarlet Natides. I like the Carnival blend. I can always harvest these young, but most of them take about 80 to 90 days. And so, but they are slow to germinate. And what's important with carrots is don't plant them really deep. Even if you're putting the seeds really like a 1/4 inch, so plant them shallow. Keep them pretty evenly moist until they germinate. And then as they germinate, just keep them well watered, but not overly wet. So carrots, definitely right now. All your different varieties of beets. So the Detroit Dark Red is a good roasting beet. You have the Italian heirloom, like the, this is the Gourmet Blend. Good variety, some good varieties. I like the gold beets. The touch golds are really good. Good roasting beet. The Early Wonder. So one thing that makes this beet differently is this is a good juicing beet because it's more, it just has more like, it's just really good for juicing. So a little, not so dry interior, but Early Wonder, good juicing variety. So that's it for the beets. Same thing as the carrots. Plant them shallow. They'll take about 2 weeks to germinate. So you got to be patient with them. And radishes are good too. I brought up, this is my favorite. So I brought up the French breakfast because they're sweeter. And there's other radishes like the cherry bombs and some other varieties, and they're a little bit more spicier. So radishes grow really quick. They can harvest out in 30 to 40 days, so very fast. So pay attention to them when you're growing them because they grow so quick. So make sure they get enough water, make sure they get enough sun, and once they're ready, 30 to 40 days, so about a month. Some of the other vegetables I'm going to be planting in trays right now. So this is what I do. September is a month I start the seeds of a lot of the fall vegetables, and I plant them as we cool off in October. So the first one is broccoli. This is my favorite variety, Bravado. So this is a good one. Again, 75 to 80 days for maturity. And so these are going to go in containers or trays, and they take about 7 days to germinate. And as they get about 4 to 6 weeks old and we start cooling down later into October, that's when I plant them. But seeds right now, trays, Bravado is a good one. I'm doing the broccoli, Rob, like the Super Rapinii. This is a good one that I'll do. The Amazing Taste cauliflower. So cauliflower I'm planting right now in containers, and then they'll go into the ground in a few weeks. Amazing cauliflower, another good cauliflower. The Utah celery. Get into the different varieties of kales, like lacinato is a good one. I like the Russian red is a good one. Some of the vegetables that I'll be seeding into the garden as we cool down, like these all go really into the month, almost October, like the butter crunch lettuce. I'll seed them directly in the garden. One of my favorite lettuce blends, I love the gourmet mix. This is my favorite. So this has a mixture of romaine and leaf lettuces, and it's so good. So I love this mix, but again, I'll direct sow it in the garden as we cool down late this month or even into October. And I love the spinaches too. Spinaches, you direct sow them. They like to be more in the garden. And this one is Oceanside, good variety. Catalina, you know, and these are baby spinach. And so I like to harvest them. And what I do with these a lot with the spinaches and the lettuces, I just keep cutting them. I do cut and come again. When you get into like the butter crunch though, the butter crunch is just one head. That's one deal, but I like to do more of the cut and come again. So I could even take the lettuce, I could blend some spinach varieties with it. So I could do the lettuces. If I like more spinach, I can put more spinach into these mixes. Sometimes if you like arugula, this is my favorite arugula, it's called Astro. Astros don't bolt as quick, but I like this. It's more of a leafy arugula. So this is a good one, but I can blend them all together. Some people always separate stuff out. I like to keep stuff pretty close, so when I'm harvesting, I'm not spending that much time when I harvest. So I'll go along and just cut off the top with the scissors and do a cut and come again with these. And that's, and then what else do I have? Oh, the little bok choys and pak choys. This is called mini pak choy. This is a direct seeder into the garden. So I really like them. You do got to watch the pill bugs a little bit. If the pill bugs get bad, I'll use like the Sluggo Plus, which is an organic little bait that you can use for the slugs and snails and pill bugs. This is the Napa cabbage. I direct sow this a lot because a lot of times these grow so quick. That's why I don't do them in containers. They're going to go right into the garden around later this month or almost October. Some of the herbs I'm going to be planting in September, it really doesn't change a lot as we go into the end of the month. Some of the summer herbs might slow down, but I'm still going through basil. I'm still planting my sweet basil. I love sweet basil for the pesto. I'm still doing my French tarragon. French tarragon is going to go dormant as we go more into fall, even into late fall. So sometimes I mark it. The summer time or the English time, this is your best culinary time. It's very aromatic, so I love the English time. I'm still planting lemongrass. Lemongrass gets taller, so wherever you plant it, give it room, put it in the back of the garden or in a container. Likes a lot of water, tall though, 3 to 4 feet. I'm doing like the garden gray or the narrow leaf cooking sages. These are good for like your brown butter and the cooking, so narrow leaf varieties I like. Still doing the lavenders, the sweet lavender I love for the oils, and you can cook with this. I love the parsley. I love the Italian parsley, so I like the giants. I'm not as big of a fan of the dwarf parsleys, but I do like the giant of Italy, and I like the tall varieties. So that's like the flat leaf. I'm looking for the tall, not the dwarf. I can still do the chamomile. I don't have any dill, but dill you can still plant right now. I'm doing a lot of the mint, my favorite mint, berries and cream. Love this variety for putting into teas. Rosemary, doing all the upright rosemary. This is called barbecue. Barbecue is one of my favorite varieties. I do like Spice Island too. One of my favorites for putting into green tea, I love lemon verbena. Lemon verbena is so good. You sort of crunch up the leaves, and I love smell it. Smells so good. But I love the lemon verbena because it gives you that lemon flavor. So great for tea, great for green tea. Another one of my favorites is Mexican oregano. I love Mexican oregano. This is what I put on pizzas. So I pinch a little piece off, I hold the tip, and then I just strip the leaves, and then I use that fresh on pizzas. And you can dry it too. I like the, I got the onion chives. You do the onion chives. Cilantro I still do. Now, if we're still hot, cilantro is gonna still bolt sometimes. So cilantro and even dill will only last for about 3-4 weeks in the garden. So just keep trimming it. The minute you buy it, trim it. I like to get the really little ones of the color packs. So the color packs are really good, but cilantro doesn't like hot weather, so it can bolt a lot. So just keep trimming it. Try not to let it go to flower, and just keep it well watered. Like again, I'm doing all the basils. Like this is boxwood basil. It's like a little Spanish basil, like the spicy globe. That's a good one. I still do the Thai basil. All the Thai basils are good. There's a really good basil called African blue. So if you want to support the bees, plant African blue basil. It gets into a more of a perennial. It's bigger. It's not as a culinary use, but I love it for the bees as sort of a pollinator plant because it will really draw the bees in for its pollen. Okay, so the flowers I'm planting in September. I'm still doing a lot of summer stuff because we won't get a lot of our winter flowers until later into this month or even next month. So I'm still doing some summer stuff. So I'm still doing like the marigolds. I can do marigolds all the way till like late October. So this is a good one. I'm doing all the marigolds. Even some of the other perennials. One of the things with me is I love perennials, and so that's why sometimes I might not talk as much about annuals, but I love perennials. So like these Evolvulus, this is Blue Days. I love this. This is a great one for in a container or in the ground, but hanging baskets. I love the trailing. So Blue Days Evolvulus. I like the variegated, this is your Feverfew, the gold. This isn't a culinary variety. It's just great for the garden. Great for roses, around rose gardens. Gets a little daisy flowers. So I love the gold Feverfew. We had one of the native, well, it's related to the natives, the little milkweed. This is a great bloomer, not much water. Gara, great pollinator, great for the butterflies. So this is the pink Gara. Love using that in gardens. You got Russian sage. This is a great plant for the gardens. It's going to get bigger, blooms in spring and then in fall. The yarrows, another great butterfly plant. So this is, which varieties? This is pink grapefruit. This looks more like a millefolium type where it's going to go along the ground. There are some yarrows that get taller, but great perennial. Love that plant. I like the salvias too. This is a little Gregii. This is called Royal Bumble. And these are great for the hummingbirds. But if they ever look like they're getting rough, just take your pruners and just light trim. Light trim off that old growth because you want them to rebloom. So light trim, light trim, light trim, light trim. So that's a great one. Royal Bumble, great one for the hummingbirds. And then you got your Angelonia, your summer snapdragons. These again will go all the way till October. Love this plant for a good bloomer. You got that lavender variety, and that's called Aloha Big Bicolor Pink. So, and then this is Archangel. So two good varieties. Some other plants that I really like. I love the verbenas. Sometimes they do better where you're at in a hotter area, but guy, the verbenas love a lot of heat. So if you live a little farther inland, oh, the verbenas are great. I like scaviolas. The scaviolas are great for containers. They want a lot of water, but you get blues and pinks, so these are so showy, and they can bloom on and off throughout the year. Just give them a lot of water. And then the million bells, I love the million bells. for containers. Sometimes in the ground, they can be tough in the ground, but hanging baskets or pots for a trailer. But they'll bloom long. They'll slow down later, but they can bloom long. They can almost bloom year round too. Love the million bells. One of my favorite plants for hummingbirds. I love this variety. So it's a proven winter selection, and it's vermillionaire. They sometimes call it the firecracker plant, but this is a variety Kufia. And oh, the little orange flowers hold a lot of nectar in the back of the flower, and the hummingbirds love this plant. It doesn't get very tall. It will get about 2 to 3 feet tall, as much as 4 if you let it. But oh, I love these vermillionaires. They're so great. Some of the shade perennials too. I never really go through some of the shade perennials, but I love this Plectranthus. It's a variegated variety, but love this for the shade. And I like the heucheras too for shade. You know, they'll bloom a little in the spring. So the coral bells are the heucheras. They get sort of chewed up. This is called heliotrope. This is, I think, midnight blue. I love this for the shade. This is going to be a taller shrub at about 3 feet by 3 feet, but the fragrance on these is like vanilla. If they ever get chewed up by the snails or slugs, then you want to use a sluggo. So that's one thing. And sluggo is an organic bait. It's not methaldehyde based, so it's an iron phosphate. You can use it in your vegetable garden. You can use it everywhere. So if you start to see those holes in the middle of the leaf, that's a snail or a slug. So like September, what I'm fertilizing in September. So this is one of those times of the month where everything has gone through the season so long that I will give them one last fertilizing about late September, early October. So especially with the roses. So roses have bloomed all the way since like March, and sometimes I'll take a little dip. So I do like to feed them. I always try to feed them about 3 times a year. I like a spring, a summer, and a fall. If they're younger, I will go more frequent. If they're older, I won't go as frequent. But I love to, I tend to use more of the pre-mixed fertilizers. I've had good luck with the down to earth, so I love using this. And then with the roses, I always will use a little Epsom salts. Always a little Epsom salts, because Epsom salts is a very important mineral for roses because it helps them branch more, and some plants don't react to its magnesium. So some plants don't react to magnesium as much as roses, but roses really react to it. But I try to do it about twice a year. Sometimes I'll do it in spring, sometimes I'll do it in summer or now. So that's why I love, and I'm not using that much. I'm only using about a half a handful. And I always like to work it in. This is really important with these fertilizers. When you put them down, a lot of times I'll take a handful, 2 handfuls, and I'll work it around the plant. I always will clean out the plant, but I like to work it in the surface and water really good. And that way it breaks down, because a lot of these organic fertilizers, they really break down better, or they activate when they get watered in really good. So it's almost like you're creating somewhat like when you put it down like an emulsion. So water in really good so it soaks in, and then the plants have a tendency to take it up. And I like to take like the small rake, and I don't have one with me. I like to take like the back of a small rake and I work it in. So like a lot of people are like crawling around on their hands and knees. I'm getting too old for that now. So I always like to use a rake, and I throw it down and then I work it in. And so that's with the roses. But another thing with this, you can use this on everything. This isn't just a rose fertilizer, and it says it right on there. Rose and flower mix. So you can use this on any perennials, salvias, anything. You could even use it on azaleas, and you could use it anything. So that's one thing with this fertilizer. It really is an all-purpose flower food. So that's, you know, with the roses, anything that flowers. So that's what I like for that. I do like, going into the next fertilizer, I like the cottonseed meal for blueberries. And you can use this on camellias and azaleas and even strawberries and different acid-loving plants and hydrangeas. But this one is a really good one for blueberries, because blueberries don't really need a lot of nutrients. They like the pH to be low, because this is a 621. So the first number is nitrogen, The second number is phosphorus, and the last number is potash or potassium. So the first number is really to help the plants with their growth, and it helps them put on, like when they're flushing their new growth, it supports that new growth with some nutrients. The second is really like your root development, your fruit development, your flowers, and then the last really helps with stress, like the potassium or the potash helps if they're going through water stress, environmental stress. So that's an important one, but it doesn't have to be really high. A lot of people think everything should be really high as long as it's balanced. That's the crucial thing with fertilizers. If they're a 484 or a 658, as long as they're balanced, because I'm not so worried about some of the really high nitrogen fertilizers like the 20s and the 30s, because there might only be 6% in that will actually work, that's available to the plants. So higher is not necessarily better. So that's one thing with that. I do like the Bio Alive. I love this on tomatoes and peppers and vegetables and fruit trees, because even though the numbers are very low, it's a 542, it has mycorrhizae in it, and mycorrhizae is a really important beneficial fungus, and it's very good for it because it really does help the plants out. And a long time ago, my soil teacher always used to tell me it's like the good guys fight the bad guys. So it is a beneficial fungus, and it's good to have because it will help break things down, and it does colonize a little bit with the roots. So I love high mycorrhizae fertilizers, and so that's one I love. And again, I always use this, like even with vegetables, I'll use it when I plant it. I'll use it 3 weeks later, 3 weeks later. I always try to use it about 3 times. Work it in really good. I like to put compost in with it too though. So when I'm doing for the vegetables, a trick that I always do, and people are asking me, what do you do with them? What do you do with like a lot of the fruit trees and the vegetables? When I fertilize, I like to do a little dusting of compost, like the Malibu, or worm castings, because that sort of gives some added nutrients over it. So I'm using my main fertilizers, I'm putting it down, and then I'll put a light dusting, not real thick, just real light with my hand. I'll just throw it out, and sometimes I'll light work it in, and then I'll water good so the nutrients that come out of this, because this will have the compost and the worm castings in it. So a lot of good nutrients along with the fertilizing nutrients. And then with other fertilizer that I use a lot, I like the compost teas. So I like to water in the compost teas. It's more of like an energy drink. So Malibu makes a good one that it looks like a tea bag. So you would steep it. So let me get one out. So you would take a bucket of water and you would steep this in the water, and then you squeeze it to get it wet, and then you steep it for a day or two, and it's good to have a little aerator. I usually go to one of the pet places and I get like a little aerator to help aerate it, because that helps oxygenate it. And I just water it in. I pour it into the garden, and sometimes I'll do that every 2-3 weeks, because this is like a light feeding. I still want to use my main fertilizers, but this is sort of what I would call like an energy drink. But they're good too, and sometimes I'll get about 4 or 5 steepings out of one bag. So good to do, the compost tea. And so, yeah, so that's with the fertilizers. Some of the insecticides I'm watching this time of year, I'm so funny when I'm spraying with some of the organic insecticides. I don't really like to spray the whole garden, you know, but like the first one, I do like the soap sprays, and I'll use this for the aphids. This is just Captain Jack's insecticidal soap, and I like to hit the growth. And this helps dry the aphids out. And another trick that I love doing when I'm spraying mites or aphids, I'll sometimes soap spray them really good. And I would spray in the evening. I don't spray during the heat of the day. So I wait until it cools off in the evening. I spray really good. Let the soap loosen everything up for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then I wash it all off. So this being a fatty acid soap, it will loosen them, and you're just washing them right off the plant. And the difference between this and other soaps, this has no alcohol, degreasers in it, so it's not going to burn the leaves of your plant. So very important, wherever you think soap is soap, this is a fatty acid soap, but no alcohol, no degreaser. It's not going to hurt the leaves, because I've seen a lot of people burn their plants with other types of soap that are much harsher. So plant-based soap, this is the one to use. And so moving on into like caterpillars. So again, the caterpillars are going to be really strong in this month, you know, coming out of last month and going into this month, they're going to be really active. So sometimes I will watch. And so if the hornworms are still chewing on all the tomatoes, or the tobacco budworms are chewing on the petunias and the geraniums, I like spinosad, but I don't spray the whole garden with this. I spot spray. So when I spot spray, I'm only spraying where I see the damage. I don't like to spray the whole garden. I don't like to affect any of the other insects. So I like to hit right where I see the damage. So if I see caterpillar damage on a tomato, it's only on that new growth. That's it. That's all I'm spraying. But spinosad is a good one. There's another product that's really good called BT. BT is a good one. And again, spot spray. Don't spray the whole garden. So that's with that. If you guys have a problem with snails and slugs and all that, because even though we haven't had a really hot summer and now we're going into fall, we'll start cooling down. And so if the snails and the slugs are bad, Sluggo. Sluggo is the only natural slug bait you could use, because this is iron phosphate. So you don't have to worry about it because it's not methaldehyde based. So what I do is I sprinkle it in the garden where I see the damage and I water it. And iron is toxic to snails and slugs, but iron is just going to break down. The plants are going to take it up. So it's not a threat to your pets or animals. So iron phosphate, Sluggo, good to use if you have a problem with snails and slugs. If you guys are fighting any mildew, like on your hydrangeas or roses or rust, I like the sulfur sprays. So this is a good one. This has an organic soap in it, and then it has sulfur in it. So I do, if you start to see the fungal problems like the rust and the mildew, and mildew looks like white powder on your tomatoes. I even have them on my tomatillos this year. So I go out in the evening and I just spot spray. So sulfur is a really good one to use for that. And so that's really covers most of the fertilizers and insecticides for this month. So as we go more into September, some of the perennials and some of the plants will need to be trimmed a little bit. And I do it more just to keep them nice and compact. I don't prune really hard. I know a lot of people want to prune really hard, but I wanted to show you guys when some of the plants are getting into this time of year, and I can light prune them back. And then a lot of times they'll flower again, most of them. So a lot of times I take like these Salvia greggii, and they're winding down. This variety is starting to pretty much bloom out. I want to go down to where I see the growth. So I want to take these stems off, and sometimes I'll go across the whole plant and just sort of light trim them. But see, I'm not really hard pruning them. I'm really going to get them ready for their next pruning. And but I always see people, they just want to prune too hard. You know, I see that happen a lot in gardens, but I'm mainly just giving them a good haircut, because even when I do, you'll see there's buds right there that are going to bloom again. And so I might get one more bloom out of them as we go into fall, but that's just, you know, a little cleanup, right? So that's the Salvia. This is Salvia greggii, Arctic Blaze. I can do it with these Agastaches. Again, all these blooms are really winding down, so I'm going to prune them just straight across. And just, this plant doesn't get as tall. It looks like I hard pruned it, but this plant only gets like a foot and a half, where the salvias will get like 2 to 3 feet. So this plant is small to begin with. So give it a haircut and get it ready. And then even with the, this is the pentas. The pentas, when they have a lot of colors, and when they still have a lot of color, let's turn this around. And sometimes I'm just pruning down to that next set of flowers, if you can see it. So I'm not going to prune him back all the way. I'm just pinning out. And let me show you the difference like between new flowers and flowers that are done. So like you can see on this one, let me hold it. So these are all new right here. So I wouldn't usually trim these, but these are done. So it almost looks like the flowers have fallen out. So this is a new buds, and this is older. I'm going to go in here and light prune, and I'm going to go down to this growth, because this is where it's going to flower off again. And this one looks pretty good, but again, I'll cut down to new growth. I'll cut this one, and so he looks pretty good because I gave him a little haircut, but you got a lot of new flowers on this one. And so when roses really come into this time of year, you're going to have some that still look good, But when we get all the way into like September, they might be real gangly, they might be like really tall stalks. So what I'm gonna do is I'll light prune them now just to get them ready to bloom again. So when you get really tall stalks like this, I'll cut them down, and I'm always looking for an outward facing branch, and I'll cut this one down and see how this one's outward facing. I'll cut this one down, this one, this. And then what I'm doing is I can bring it down a little bit lower. And then I can go through and I can spray it and clean it up. And so basically I'm going to get it ready for one more good bloom. So roses, they'll peak this time of year. So they've bloomed all the way since like March and April. So they've been blooming like April, May, June, July, August, and sometimes they'll take a dip. So I'll light cut them down. I'll fertilize them, give them some Epsom salts, and get them ready for more into October, because they'll bloom again before they really slow down in November. And so that's with roses. So light trim them back, clean them up, and get them ready for the next bloom cycle. And then as we go into fall, the hydrangeas will start winding down a little bit. Older hydrangeas, and this is a tricky thing with hydrangeas, when they're younger, they'll finish quicker. When they're older, sometimes they keep blooming all the way into October. So sometimes when I'm talking about pruning back hydrangeas, when they're younger, I'm just really light pruning them back. So as the flower fades out, I'm just sort of going through and light trimming. You got some new ones in here, light trimming. And I always like to light trim them now, and then I'll let these bloom, and then as we go more into fall, I'll strip all the leaves off them too and let them go into their dormancy. And the main thing with anything that blooms off of new growth, so once I strip the leaves off and then lightly cut these back, they're going to start producing new growth later in the winter time. You never want to prune them in spring. You can prune them in fall, but this is where a lot of people go wrong with hydrangeas. They prune them too late and they wonder why they don't get flowers. So you can prune them now, and this is like September, but if you prune them in like January or February, you're going to get all the blooms that are going to bloom in June, July, and August. So remember, no pruning in spring. So and late winter, spring, no pruning with hydrangeas. Fall, okay? And that's pretty much the extent of pruning back. Here goes another little agastache where, again, I'm just light clipping these off, and I know it looks really, this little guy looks pretty rough, but he needs to go on the ground. These are pretty drought tolerant plants. They grow a lot in the Southwest, so they don't really like to be real wet. So a lot of times, they're a great hummingbird plant though. Even though the flowers are really little, the hummingbirds love these. So yeah, so that makes up the fall pruning, little maintenance on stuff. Thanks for joining us today for the monthly checklist for September. And don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then you can watch all these videos. Thanks guys, and I hope to see you guys at the Halloween Boutique. And this is David, and I'll see you soon.